To this end, I want to mention two different healers that Louis sought out. First, in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, a woman by the name of Serena Stone, and she is a high-level Taoist teacher, student of Mantak Chia in Thailand. And she, at the time, in St. Paul, out of her home, was offering healing in a form called Chineseng. Deals with sort of like clearing the energy in the energy body, specifically in the belly, that is carried. And this again was Louis' dilemma that he had for years, especially in his marriage with Suzanne, experienced high-level problems in his core, his belly, acid reflux. So when he went to Serena to see about a period of healing with her, she knew right away that in order for Louis to heal, he would have to leave the marriage, which was aggravating the problem. And so it was a combination of doing some work with her, getting prepared to leave the marriage, because again, this was a dilemma for Louis, in part because of this core soul dilemma he had since his youth about not feeling a sense of home, a sense of safety in the home. And of course, this was all being reflected in his marriage. I mean, Louis had to separate inside the house from Suzanne because she would have these night terrors where she would just bolt upright in bed, screaming, shrieking from unhealed abuse from her childhood. And this just, terrorized Louis. He eventually had to sleep in another part of the house to just get away from that. And so anyway, worked with Serena for about a year, and in this period, made the move out of the house and eventually getting a divorce. And for Louis, it was so important that he received this freedom that he was willing just to walk away and give his ex-wife everything, which it was a substantial estate that they had built together. So the second part of this healing process was with Anya McAndrew, and I'll include a picture of both Serena and Anya. Anya is a very bright light who has she lives in a community, an intentional community outside of Asheville, North Carolina. And she does this shamanic breath work where when Louis first met her, he kind of explained his karmic dilemma that started as a young boy with his mom. And she basically said, well, this is not a problem. If you're willing to commit to do an intensive one-on-one shamanic breath work healing with me, it'll be a 24-hour thing. It'll be $800. And at the time, Louis probably had $1,000 to his name. And he just was like, okay, let's do it. This was like now a couple years outside of the marriage. This was when he was searching for his new home. He was in Asheville, Sarasota, Florida, a few places, Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, 2007, 2008, Louis looking for the place where is he going to fully flower? Where is he going to begin his Oasis Center for Conscious Living? And anyway, so he met Anya. He knew that this was the perfect thing. He did this intensive shamanic breath work, which he had done breath work before. This with her was wild. It was very different. I won't get into the details of it, but very powerful. When they were finishing the session in the morning, started in the afternoon, went through the night, and the next morning, Anya basically just declared, it's over. The whole karmic thing that you'd had with the feminine in this lifetime is over. And she basically predicted that if Louis in the future were to have a relationship with a woman, it would be entirely different than this whole pattern he had had in the past, which Suzanne was sort of like the crescendo of this pattern of just being attracted to very, very beautiful, very sexy, very troubled women. So Louis was like, wow, that would be amazing. He couldn't even sort of imagine being attracted to a different kind of woman. But as you'll find out later in the story, Louis's situation now in Ecuador with Kati is exactly that. A total reversal of the pattern that had existed before. So the completion piece with Serena Stone and Anya McAndrew was done. This ancient hatred, which again Louis had held toward himself, everyone does to some degree if they don't fully embrace their divinity, fully embrace their humanity. At some level, they're playing this egoic game, this defensive game of denial and projection. So again, the holiest of all places is where an ancient hatred becomes a present love. And this is exactly what Louis experienced. It's interesting because one of the core pieces that I mentioned was this feeling of homelessness. And Louis had moved around so many times. And during this period, 2007, 2008, where Louis is looking for his place, he'd spent time in Sarasota and Asheville. He had met a woman in Asheville who had a spa in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, and she invited Louis to come out and help transform the spa into a teaching center, healing center. So actually Louis accepted that invitation and he was driving. This is a very significant piece of the story. He was driving 2 days from Asheville, North Carolina to Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And he had stayed somewhere, Alabama or someplace the first night. And early in the morning, he's driving through like northern Louisiana through this area. I don't know if it was like a lot of marshlands or whatever, but it was like a foggy, misty morning, and the sun was coming up. Louis driving his car, pulling a trailer, all his worldly goods. And Louis had this profound experience where he suddenly knew, he felt so deeply, he knew that home was with him, that he just had a deep sense of knowing that he was home, like within himself, that he was complete, he was whole. He was home, so it didn't matter any longer where in the world his body or his person would end up. The search for home. He had it. It suddenly became integrated fully inside himself. So he knew he was at home in the world, in the universe, wherever physically his body and person was. So this again was this completion piece. Louis had no more agenda with the masculine, no more agenda with the feminine, no more agenda with a sense of homelessness or a sense of safety in the world. Louis was free. He was whole, happy, and free. And how this would play out now in the future really was of little consequence, because it wasn't like any longer he was searching for something. It was simply like, where would you have me be? Simply asking the universe, where would you have me be? And it turns out, of course, it wasn't Truth or Consequences. It wasn't any place in the United States. It ended up being in Cuenca, Ecuador. We'll get to that final segment of the story next time. But today, the completion piece, gratitude to Serena Stone, Anya McAndrew, for their powerful shamanic presence, allowing Louis to be finished. Louis was basically finished. So now the body and the person of Louis was fully available to me. So the rest of the story would be easy. It would be a simple expression. Still in the time-space world, it would go through a few little details, but the details no longer mattered. Louis was ready. I had finished my job, 40-something years of guidance to get him to this point. That's the whole story. That's the whole story of what for anyone would be the destiny, the calling to become whole, happy, and free, to no longer have any tribal or egoic baggage, interference patterns that would block the function that you are born to perform, to become this unencumbered portal, this clear channel through which the unmanifested would express itself in your world. Okay, and so again, everyone does this to some degree, but dependent on what they're carrying, unfinished business, this will taint, this will affect, this will color what they teach. Okay, so I'll end with another piece from A Course in Miracles, this benediction that says, through you is ushered in a world unseen, unheard, yet truly there. Holy are you, like in this function you were. You, again, joined with your own Sun King, higher self, become holy in that there's this completion. You are now fully available to be used as this perfect portal, this clear channel, beautiful bridge between heaven and earth. That is your function. That is what the new human is all about, Homo spiritus, Homo glimilis, fully engaged with this high-level function. Blessings from Sun King. Have a beautiful day. I love you.